All right, welcome everyone. Great to see you. Thank you for coming and joining us this evening or this night or afternoon. I'm Tâmara Williams and I'm here with Lorin Hansen, and we're going to talk about Silvestre Dance Technique. So, bem-vindo. Eu sou Tâmara Xavier, aqui com Lorin Hansen. E a gente vai falar sobre a técnica silvestre hoje à noite. E a gente vai explorar muitas ideias e fazer uma entrevista, né? Um bate-papo. E eu quero começar com Lorin, falando sobre a vida dela, a dança que ela está fazendo no estado de Utah. And so I want to start with asking Lorin about the dance that she does and what she's doing in the state of Utah.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. This is a fun, surprising invite. I was honored to be invited for this, and it's really fun to see you and to talk with you. So yeah, my name is Lorin. I run a company in Utah. We are called Samba Fogo, and we are a band, and we're also a dance company. So we are a dance company who always uses live music. We try to, and we're a community who explores Brazilian drumming and dance.
Wonderful. Can you translate?
I can.
Go ahead, you got it.
Posso tento. Oh man, this is going to be really hard, but eu, Lorin Hansen, e eu tenho companhia do samba, chama Samba Fogo, aqui em Salt Lake City, Utah. E Samba Fogo é tambor e dança juntos. Tá bom?
Sim, dá para entender. We can understand. So we're here from this special invite from the International Samba Congress, and we're here to talk about Silvestre Technique in respects of the technique and also as a fundraiser to build a space, to have a space in Praça da Sé for Silvestre Dance Technique, yeah? So, então a gente está aqui pelo convite de International Samba Congress em respeito da técnica silvestre para criar esse casa de técnica silvestre, para ter um espaço aí em Praça da Sé, e por isso a gente está fazendo Samba Congress está aqui, e por isso a gente está fazendo todos esses lives, tinha live de Deco ontem, eu e Lorin hoje, amanhã vai ter mais, para dia 12, a gente vai fazer um dia de dança, Tecnica Silvestre, yes? So we're doing this event. We have this live today. We had one yesterday with Professor Deco. There's more tomorrow to raise funds for this space. And we'll have our day-long event on the 12th, this Saturday, from 1 to 5 Eastern Standard Time, yeah. It starts at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, yeah. So make sure you register. Go to the International Samba Congress Facebook page and find the event and register, yes. Então, se você quer participar esse fim de semana, sábado, vai na página do Samba Congress, International Samba Congress, e busca o evento de dia 12 e faz a registração, tá?
Então, hi Yuko. Hey guys.
Good to see you, Yuko. So we're going to continue with asking questions, yeah? A gente vai continuar com essas perguntas, yeah? And so, eu posso falar um pouco sobre mim também, porque eu não falei muito. I'll talk a little about myself as well. Eu sou Tâmara Williams Xavier. I'm Tâmara Williams Xavier. Eu estou aqui em Charlotte. I'm here in Charlotte, North Carolina. E eu sou professora de Técnica Silvestre. I'm a teacher of Silvestre Dance Technique. I also have a dance company, Moving Spirits. Eu também tenho uma companhia de dança, Moving Spirits, Espíritos Movendo. E estou muito feliz para ter essa oportunidade para falar e compartilhar hoje. And so I'm very happy to have this opportunity to share with you all today.
Okay. So, Tâmara, I'm curious when and where you first encountered Silvestre Tecnique, and what was the context of it, and how did you feel in that moment?
Ok. Então, Lorin está perguntando quando foi que eu encontrei a Tecnica Silvestre, como foi esse encontro, e também, Luciana, e também como eu senti durante esse tempo. So I always talk about the first time that I met Rosangela. Yeah, because that was really my first contact with the technique. E eu sempre falo sobre a primeira vez que eu encontrei Rosangela, porque realmente foi a primeira vez que eu tinha contato com essa técnica. Ela estava dançando em Nova York, em Brooklyn, no Brooklyn Arts Exchange, nunca vou esquecer. E eu não lembro o ano, mas eram muitos anos atrás. E ela estava fazendo um show. E eu acho que a irmã dela, Marivaldo, estava tocando para ela. And so Rosangela was performing in New York, in Brooklyn, and she was at the Brooklyn Arts Exchange, yeah. And she was dancing a solo, and I think it was her brother Marivaldo who was also drumming. He was doing music for her solo piece. Mm-hmm. And I just remember seeing her move through space, the way that she encompassed the whole space, right? From her fingernails through her hair. I also talk about this in the book that I wrote about the technique. Her hair was dancing in a way that I'd never seen before. And she handed out cards to people in the audience, and they were reading. And it was such a, it was so interdisciplinary in the way that the performance happened, and it had elements of the technique. Now, I didn't know it was the technique at the time, but I went to her after the performance and I said, well, I've heard about you for many years and the dance technique. And she says to me, well, you come to Salvador this was December. She was like, we have an intensive in January, come. And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, no, you can come. And so she's like, I'll give you my email. I'll help you with your housing, all of these things. And so I did. I went the next month to Brazil, and I've gone literally every year after that. And so it was a really momentous moment in life. So I'm going to translate all of that. Eu vou tentar traduzir tudo isso. Então, a Rosangela estava dançando no palco. Até o cabelo dela estava dançando, né? Era um momento que realmente fez eu eu estava muito curiosa sobre essa dança, de onde vem a raiz. E ela estava dando cartões para pessoas assistindo, ler, e Marivaldo estava tocando, muitas coisas estavam acontecendo no mesmo tempo. E depois do show, eu falei com ela, eu disse, eu já ouvi seu nome, Rosangela Silvestre, sobre a Tecnica Silvestre para muitos anos, e esse era dezembro, e ela disse, o próximo mês vai ter intensivo, você pode vir. Eu disse, para outro país, o próximo mês, eu não sei. E ela disse, não, você pode, vou dar meu e-mail, vou passar meu e-mail, vou ajudar você buscar um lugar para ficar, e realmente isso aconteceu mesmo, e todo ano, né, estou em Salvador, estudando mais e mais e mais. Então, isso foi meu primeiro encontro com técnica, yeah? Nessa forma que eu gosto de falar.
It's beautiful.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'll ask you, Lorin, if and how Silvestre Tecnique influences the work that you do with your company. Então, eu estou perguntando a Lorin como a Tecnica Silvestre faz influências no trabalho da companhia dela.
Yes, very much, of course. I think more of it, I think of it more for me as like, it just became a really big part of my life and a part of the way I see the world and how I can operate in the world and see my path. And so, yes, of course, it has come into my artistic work and, you know, even my administrative work benefits from Silvestre Technique, right? Yeah, very much so. It's really right here with me all the time. It's really a big part of me.
Bom. Português?
I really don't know how to say that. Let's see. É uma grande parte do minha vida. Silvestre, yeah, it's true, Marcella. Silvestre Technique became, chega uma parte de mim, uma grande caminho.
Sim. So, a mesma coisa para mim. So, Silvestre is in the same way, for me, it's been a great part of my path. Grande parte de meu caminho também. Eu vou compartilhar o que Marcela está falando no chat, que é muito importante também, né? I will share with Marcela what Marcela, one of the professors of Silvestre Tecnique, is writing in the chat because it's very important. She says, it's really important to come to Salvador to get closer to our culture, our dance. And we recognize this. We realize how important it is to have a dance space, house, school for the Silvestre dance technique. Yeah. Marcela, nossa professora de Técnica Silvestre, também escreveu no chat. É muito importante para vir para Salvador, né? Para realmente entender cultura, dança. E quando a gente vejo isso, a gente sente como é importante para ter esse espaço de dança, casa para a Técnica Silvestre. Sim, né? Yeah. So we'll keep going with some questions, yeah? Também, se vocês têm perguntas que está assistindo no Facebook ou YouTube, pode colocar aqui, yeah? Pode escrever, a gente está vendo. So if you have questions, you can also write it here in the chat, yeah? We can see them. Pilar está perguntando sobre o livro, o nome do livro. Eu vou falar sobre o livro, então. So she's asking about the book, about Silvestre Tecnique that I wrote. So I will share about the book. Eu quero compartilhar minha tela, okay? So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully I do it correctly, yeah? Então, esse livro tá aqui? Não, né? Ainda não está aqui. Mas eu vou falar. Oh! No?
I think it just takes a while.
It takes a minute. Okay. Esse livro, que é chamado Giving Life to Movement, yeah? Esse livro, eu estou falando 2 idiomas no mesmo tempo, desculpa. So, this book is called Giving Life to Movement. This book is very special to me, and it talks about my journey in Silvestre Technique, right? And how, for me, Silvestre Technique, I always say, is a living technique, and it has really, really given life to the movement that I do in my company, in my practice of dance, in my teaching. And it's a philosophy that I've also shared with my students. And so the book goes through my personal journey through Silvestre Technique, and it goes through my definitions of what the technique is. And so hopes that those that read the book can then have their own journey and their own discoveries and see their own capacities and possibilities through the technique. It's for sale on Amazon, or the publisher is McFarland, and it's set to be released in February. The date was pushed back due to COVID, but it's available for pre-order. Então, eu vou falar em português. So, Então, esse livro eu chamo de Dar Vida ao Movimento. E esse livro é muito importante, significado para mim, porque a técnica silvestre me mostra como dar a vida para o movimento. É a importância nisso, no palco, dançando, né, nas aulas, quando estou dando aula para outras pessoas, quando estou trabalhando com minha companhia. Eu descobri tudo isso com técnica silvestre, né? E nesse livro é minha investigação, é minha caminho adentro da técnica silvestre, e eu compartilho esse livro com o pensamento que outros também podem descobrir a caminho, né, que a técnica pode trazer ou levar pessoas, né. E então nesse livro eu falo sobre a técnica silvestre pela minha visão, né, minha visão do as palavras, sobre o movimento, tudo. Então queria compartilhar isso, porque é grande parte de minha vida. Eu gosto muito de escrever e dançar. E quando conectar, que coisa linda. So I love to write and I love to dance. And so when they connect, it's a beautiful, marvelous thing. Yeah.
When I was invited to do this, I was trying to remember that quote, like, writing about dance is like dancing about architecture.
Yes.
And I thought that about, like, talking about Silvestre Technique. It's such a multifaceted thing in our lives that it's kind of hard to talk about because it's hard to put into words. So I'm really excited to read your book because I don't really feel like I can write very well about this topic. So
Yeah, and I joke around, but I'm actually not joking when I say, if I write this book has been in the works for maybe 5 years, and if I could, I would rewrite it all again because it's a living technique and it's completely different than what I thought or envisioned or experienced 5 years ago,
yeah.
Right? Like life is different than what it is 5 years ago. So, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Essa é uma boa pergunta. So, maybe I'll ask this question for you, Lorin. Olga está perguntando, Olga's asking, how do you apply the philosophy of Silvestre Technique in your everyday life? Olga está perguntando como aplica a filosofia de técnica silvestre em sua própria vida.
Several ways. Perhaps the one that springs to mind for me is the idea of the elements and how they can aid us and how we can be embodying the natural elements and the way they behave. And then, bring the fluidity of water into my life on a daily basis, or bring, I think that one thing that Silvestre Technique and Samba in general really brought out of me was my strength. I think I was a very shy person. I'm the youngest in my family. And I just had a lot of inhibitions. And then I got to find my warrior, and it was like lying dormant, ready to spring. And so I think that strength of the earth, the fluidity of the water, the determination of fire, all of these things come into my everyday thinking all the time, especially how I'm going to take in the world and react to the world and operate in the world.
Do you want to translate, or you want me to try to do a summary? You got it. You're doing great.
Okay, I'll try. It's good for me. Para mim, os 4 elementos muito importante em minha vida, cada dia, e fluidity da água, guerreira do terra, e embodying elements, 4 elementos.
I don't even know that word, but that, I think
Wow,
So
that's
the motion, the motion makes it clear. Yeah. Outra coisa, né, que a técnica silvestre, a gente que são estrangeiros, né, do país do Brasil, a gente aprende português, né, a cultura, yeah, so those of us who are not from Brazil, right, and Portuguese isn't our first language, we learn through the culture. It's another thing that Silvestre Technique really brings as another enrichment for our lives, yeah. Ok, meu marido está perguntando. Queria que vocês expliquem como é o processo para vocês começar a ensinar a técnica. Existe uma graduação específica para que vocês se tornem um professor da técnica? Ele está perguntando. So, Luciano is asking, how is the process to become a teacher or to start teaching Silvestre Technique? Is there a graduation? How do you become a teacher of Silvestre Technique? So for me, I'll talk about me. Eu vou falar sobre mim, né? Eu já fui para Salvador várias vezes, né? E tem recognição. Was I talking in Portuguese? Yeah.
You were.
Sim, recognição, né? Com compleção do intensivo, né? Que não é a mesma coisa para graduação, para ensinar a técnica, yeah? Então, por mim, quando foi que eu comecei a dar aula, realmente era da boca de Rosangela Silvestre falar para mim, Tâmara, você tem que começar, você tem capaz, você tem essa possibilidade para compartilhar mais, né? Era um lugar que ela chamou a atenção, né? Que Tâmara não fica nesse lugar de só dançar. Você também tem essa possibilidade para ensinar, né? So, for me, the process wasn't through some kind of graduation ceremony in Salvador. There is through the intensive, there is a recognition of completing the intensive, which is not the same thing as a graduation to like receive permission to teach, right? So when I started teaching, it was really through a call through talking with Rosangela, and she basically said, you have the capacity and the possibility to teach now. So you should share. You should start to share and teach Silvestre Technique in this way. So that was the calling for me. And I do believe it's a calling because I think everyone's story is different, but it does come as a call. E eu estou falando que eu acho que a história para todo mundo é um pouco diferente, mas vem como uma chamada, né? Sempre vem como uma chamada para começar. Não é específica Rosangela falando, mas um outro tipo de chamada também pode ser. Sim.
Beautiful. Do you want me to answer that or should we move on?
If you want to answer.
Well, it's very open-ended for me right now. It remains very open-ended. And I went for the first intensive. It was 2009, and I went and I like received the second level of 3 certifications, and then I didn't go back for a really long time, like way too long. But by the time I went to the intensive, I think I was already teaching dance, just not teaching Silvestre Technique. And I still to this day just don't refer to myself as a Silvestre Technique teacher. I've never quite felt comfortable doing that. I not for any like concrete reason, and maybe it's also just to leave my options a little open as well. But yeah, I think I more pulled it into my life and let the title of Silvestre Technique, that name, I've never really adopted it and in my work. And it's sort of out of respect for Rosangela because I never went back and I got that final certification to do it. So I keep in contact with her. We have this great relationship. She comes here all the time. We work together. We make art together. She helps me all the time, but we've never had that moment where it's like, okay, call it this. You know? So it's interesting to hear from you as well. And that's too much to translate. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Cecilia has a great question. What's your favorite quote from Rosangela? Oh, there's so many.
There's so many. One that springs to mind for me is, the classic one for me is we are the dance, not only the dancer. Mm-hmm. And that has been a really profound concept in my samba studies and in my dance studies, to acknowledge that dance is its own entity. It's its own living, breathing entity. And it has desires. It has ways that it wants things to go. And to respect it as such has been a really wonderful concept to bring in. So we are the dance, not only the dancer.
I think I can kind of cheat a little bit because in my book, and I just opened it, there are quotes actually from my journals. So I have journals from my times that I gone to Brazil and study, and I take notes, right? Uma coisa que eu sempre faço é escrever, né? Quando estou na aula, eu sempre tenho minha livro para escrever coisas. Então, eu estou lendo aqui o meu livro sobre uma coisa que a Rosangela falou anos atrás. Ela falou, dance is everything. A dança é tudo. Take the things that bother you and turn them into magic, and you keep going. Yeah? Então, pega as coisas que se perturba e virou em mágica e vai seguindo. Yeah? Beautiful. Okay, great. Oh, these are great. We had questions for each other, but the questions in the chat keep going. This is good. It's an element of surprise. A gente também tinha perguntas, né? Mas é bom para ver as perguntas no chat, porque é um elemento de surpresa que deixa a gente um pouco mais livre, né? So Pilar asks, Rosangela used a description, the silence of the dance, this last weekend at Sisters Embrace event. Might either of you know what this means to you, the silence of the dance? I'm going to translate. Rosangela, nesse fim de semana, durante evento chama de Sisters Embrace, falou sobre o silêncio da dança, né? E Pilar está perguntando o que é significado isso para eu e Lorin. O silêncio da dança, para mim, é muitas coisas, né? Porque na cultura iorubá também tem silêncio, que o corpo está em movimento, mas é uma oração, né? So for me, it's many things, because in Yoruba culture, there's silence and movement, but the movement is actually a prayer, yeah? Mas também, esse silêncio também tem uma musicalidade, que é silêncio. And so also the silence also has a musicality that is silence. Não sei se dá para entender. I don't know if you can understand, but it's something that I use. And so, para mim, esse lugar é um lugar que vai muito para dentro, para escutar o corpo, a história, as ancestrais, a força, todas essas coisas e muito mais muito mais coisas também. So for me, it's a place that we go internally inside to listen to the body, listen to the history, listen to our ancestors, and many more things. Esse lugar de silêncio, this a place of silence for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I was just reminded of another quote that I have up on my wall that I came home from my very first intensive with. A student stood up and spoke of her experience being hospitalized with some sort of physical ailment. And she talked about how our silence is our greatest resource and how she really used her silence to heal. And all throughout my life, the power of silence has really, I'm still discovering that, but it's got a lot of power. If we can tap into our own silence, there's a lot of power there. And also, I think that a lot of these dance forms differ from my previous dance experience in one major way, and it's this. Are you concerned when you dance? Are you concerned about how you look, or are you concerned about how you feel?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, how we feel when we dance is way more important, but we get all caught up in the other stuff. And so that silence can cut through and bring me back to that place of just trusting myself and using that power.
Beautiful.
Nice question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Just to make sure, in case someone has just hopped on, em caso de alguém para entrar agora, eu sou Tâmara Williams, aqui com Lorin, e a gente está fazendo esse bate-papo, falando sobre a técnica silvestre, né, pelo convite de International Samba Congress. A gente vai ter um grande evento esse sábado, fim de semana, esse sábado. Eu vou falar o horário daqui em Nova York, o horário de Nova York é 1 hora até 5 horas. Vai ter todos os professores que estão trabalhando nessa equipe, né? Rosangela Silvestre, Vera Passos, eu, Deco, Marcela, Vanessa, Agatha, Luanda, pessoas que é a primeira equipe do Tecnica Silvestre também. Então, muito obrigada de novo para o convite International Samba Congress. So we're here from the invite from the International Samba Congress, myself, Tâmara Williams, with Lorin Hansen, and we're talking about the magic of Silvestre dance technique and how it's influenced our lives and the work that we do, and just our life philosophy, really. And so we have a great event this Saturday. International Samba Congress is hosting, and it's going to be from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to have professors of the Silvestre Dance Technique teaching class, all for a fundraiser to have our Silvestre Dance Technique space in Praça da Sé. Yeah? Então, a gente vai fazer isso todo para ter esse espaço de técnica silvestre em Praça da Sé. Yeah? Obrigada, Rosangela. E the creator, a criador, Rosangela Silvestre está escrevendo agora, né? So, Rosangela is writing now in the chat. Wonderful. Okay, mais perguntas, yeah? So more questions. I have a question for you, actually. So, why do you continue to train, to dance, to go to Salvador and study Silvestre Technique? Por que você continuar estudando, treinando, indo para Salvador para treinar na técnica silvestre?
Partly because it's challenging, and it continues to be challenging. My first year there, I think I cried every day that I was there. And it was a big, coming of age kind of moment for me. I was pretty young, and so it's a challenging technique, and I love its ability to continue to challenge dancers. I live in a community here in Salt Lake City. We have a lot of dance. We have a lot of ballet, a ton of modern dance, lots of modern dance companies. So, and we have a university that has a good dance program. And I went through that program. And so, yeah, we're a dance community, but we are a European dance community, right? We're a modern dance community. And so, I feel like I've had a lot of opportunity to work with a lot of very skilled dancers with a lot of training. And always, it's same with our classical musicians, right? People come to these art forms and there's something new for us here. There's something very challenging and very deep and gives us more to chew on for a longer amount of time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you want to do like a short summary in Portuguese?
I can't even remember what I just said, honestly. Eu trabalho com muitas dançarinas está na Utah. Tenho muito dança aqui, mas dança moderna. E Silvestre Tecnique e danças brasileiras e afro-brasileiras e dá uma coisa de novo, coisas novas para artistas to challenge. How does it challenge?
I've forgotten how to say. Oh.
It's a good challenge.
Desafio.
Desafio, right. We know that word.
Yeah. Good. Let's see.
So Holly-san, hi. So he says, for both of you, how was the feel? How did you feel when you realized your connection with Silvestre Tecnique?
É um pouco difícil para responder, porque não era só um sentimento, né? Porque todo dia que eu tenho conexão com técnica, que realmente é o dia inteiro, todos os dias é o dia inteiro, eu sinto várias coisas, né? A primeira vez que eu vi Rosangela dançando, eu já estava, o que é isso? Estava querendo mais, eu queria entender mais, né? Porque eu ainda não tinha esse movimento no meu corpo, right? And so it's a difficult question a little bit to answer because when I practice Silvestre Technique, and it's something I practice really daily as a philosophy even, there's always more feelings, right? But from the very first time I saw Rosangela dancing, there was this curiosity and interest of wanting to know more, even though I hadn't discovered the technique in my body yet. Mas a primeira vez que eu realmente dancei na aula, com certeza eu estava com Vera. A primeira vez eu estava dançando, eu estava com Vera. E eu lembro que Vera estava dando aula, mas Rosangela estava andando. E dentro da sala, ali na escola de dança, e eu senti muito poder, né? Realmente, eu não coloquei no livro, porque essa palavra não é bom para escrever, eu acho. Eu senti que eu estava parte de uma milícia, mas não uma milícia de matar pessoas, é outro tipo de milícia de dança, né? Uma força muito grande, não tinha outra palavra em minha mente para explicar esse sentimento, mas eu senti muito força, que realmente naquele momento, e até hoje, às vezes eu não sei como explicar. So the first time that I actually took class, it was with Vera Passos, and Rosangela was walking around in the space, and I remember thinking or feeling actually that I felt like it was like a militia, a military. I don't like to use that word because it has negative connotations, right, for some people. and I didn't use that word in my book for that reason, but I felt a sense of extreme power, like power of dance. If there was a such thing of like a strong force of people moving as a dance militia, that would be this, yeah. And it's very different than my other training processes that I've had. E é muito diferente dos outros treinamentos de dança que eu já experienciei em minha vida. Técnica de Graham, Horton, ballet, muitas coisas, yeah? So it's different than my Graham training or Horton or ballet or many other things that I've studied.
Yeah. Nice. You're making me realize and remember that the first time that I took Silvestre Technique was probably one of the first times that I had danced without a mirror. So I first encountered Rosangela at California Brazil camp. And there the dance floor is in the middle of this most beautiful and sacred forest with huge redwood trees. And so I come from gymnastics and modern dance and a little bit of ballet, where we're always looking in the mirror at ourselves and comparing ourselves to other bodies and trying to look like those other bodies. And here was a space where I couldn't see myself. I couldn't see my classmates much of the time. I could see the trees and the sky and feel the wind. And so, of course, I mean, it's just magical. And I think I met Rosangela and started dancing Orisha movement with her first, and then later she started to bring in Silvestre Technique to that event. I think it took a couple years, but yeah. And then definitely I feel what you're saying about the power and the force in it and the dancing warriors. I very much felt this like potential of strength, but wanted to know more and needed more information.
The last chapter of my book, and I have no idea how to translate what I'm about to say. I'm going to put it in Google real quick. The last chapter of my book is actually solely dedicated to this idea of self-actualization that I felt from Silvestre Technique, right? In a way that I've not gotten from my studies or gotten from just traveling alone, but really just like self-actualization that has come from deep connection with the body, the history and roots and potential that comes from this technique. And it's so deep, right? And there's a whole chapter about it because there's so much potential. And Yuko, whose name actually just popped up, is in this chapter, like connections, right? And so she has a quote in that chapter talking about the potential that this dance technique offers. Estou falando que ok, Lorin está falando sobre esse poder, né? A gente está falando sobre esse poder que vem com essa técnica. Tem parte no livro que só fala sobre isso mesmo, o auto-atualização, eu não estou falando tudo certo, mas falo sobre essa potência no corpo, a potência que a técnica silvestre criar para as pessoas, as possibilidades, uma forma para crescer, não só no corpo, mas no lado mental, espiritual, tudo isso. E também no corpo mesmo. Yeah? Thank you, Yuko.
Yes, thank you, Yuko. That's so sweet.
Beautiful. Lorin, why do you think it's important to have a space for Silvestre Technique?
Oh, man. It's just such a special it's such a special thing in so many people's lives at this point. It has spread so far and wide. And I mean, if you've ever been in one of those classes, you can definitely feel that more space is needed, right? We get really crammed in, which is part of the fun, but and the challenge. Like this last time I was there, I spent a lot of time hanging out in the back of the room with maybe many 30 rows of people in front of me, between me and the teacher. And I actually talked about this in my ISC class, my International Samba class, because I was talking about the power, all the information that's coming to us through our ears when we dance this technique. And I challenged people to, the next time you're in that situation, you can't see the teacher, maybe just trying to hear, where you're at. However, it would be nice to have a bit more space. And yeah, I just feel like it would honor the technique in a better way and place it more prominently. I mean, I think if I understand where the space is, it's in a very prominent place. It's right where your Uber drops you off. And then you kind of have to wind down to the current place. And maybe we can be out on that plaza. It would just be so beautiful, and it would honor what the legacy that is thriving.
Yes. Do you want? Well, I can talk a little in Portuguese, porque ter espaço para a técnica silvestre é muito importante, né? Para várias razões, mas primeiro, né? Casa, para ter um lugar que a gente pode chamar nosso lugar de encontro, nosso lugar para crescer, nosso lugar para sentir mais como família, né? A família encontrar em casa. Então, é esse lugar que a gente pode treinar o ano inteiro, né? Não só janeiro, agosto, faz um encontro. Não, estudar mesmo o ano inteiro, janeiro até fim de ano. Uau. E também tem esse lugar de janeiro e agosto intensivo. Mas para aqueles, tipo, Rosângela estava há anos atrás dando aulas, né? E depois Vera, né, criou esse espaço de horário do almoço, Tecnica Silvestre, aí na escola de dança. E agora que lindo que pode ter esse horário de almoço o dia inteiro. É um espaço que também abre para a comunidade, abre para os estrangeiros, abre para as pessoas em Brasil, para pessoas não só encontrar um mês ou 2 meses, ou depois 5 anos. Tem essa possibilidade para vir para Salvador e a casa está aberta para receber pessoas que quer treinar, que quer mergulhar mais, né? E com Vera, com Rosângela, com Marcela, com Deco, com todo mundo na equipe, Vanessa, com Agatha. É lindo que a técnica vai para a Rússia, né? Vai para a Austrália, vai para os Estados Unidos, vai para esse lugar, né? África, mas também casa, né? Em Salvador. É muito importante também para ter um home base, né? Então, é importante, e desde que a gente está falando sobre espaço, a International Samba Congress colocou aqui agora o link do Eventbrite, yeah? So, since we're talking about the space right now, International Samba Congress has put in the link for the Eventbrite so that you can go to the website and purchase your tickets for the event on Saturday, yeah? Pode ir lá para comprar as tickets, sim, para dia 12. E amanhã vai ter encontro de família, yeah? And so tomorrow we're going to have a family meeting, okay? O mesmo lugar, o mesmo horário, yeah? So same time, same place, com todo mundo, né? Toda a família do equipe. So we'll have this meeting with everyone from the Silvestre family, yeah? So Marcela, Deco, Rosângela, Vera, Luanda, yeah, who was one of the first students of the Technique in the intensive. A Luanda, que era dos primeiros estudantes no intensivo. Luciano, Vanessa, yeah, Renato, Alison, eu e Agatha, né? Então, amanhã tem mais, sempre tem mais, e mais ainda, yeah? So come tomorrow, there's more, and there's always more, yeah. So, Any last questions? Do you have any last questions?
Did I get to mine?
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I did, one of my questions. Oh, well, okay, that's not a question.
Okay.
Well, how do you feel? So you mentioned Graham and Horton technique may have come for you before Silvestre Technique. Body-wise, body concepts-wise, how do you feel? What does Silvestre Technique bring to the dance world that is so unique or different?
Oh, wow.
Or are there differences that you find?
O que a técnica Silvestre doar para o mundo de dança que é diferente, né? Adentro esse pensamento do técnicas modernos, mais técnicas, yeah? Muitas coisas. Primeiro, tem essa ligação com raiz e histórias. First, there's this connection with roots and stories. Por mim, quando eu estou treinando, for me, when I'm training, I also think of the ancestral connections from which the technique has its foundation. Por mim, eu também penso nas conexões as conexões ancestral que tem uma fundação no Tecnica Silvestre, yeah? Quando vai mais profundo, você descobrir essa conexão que é muito importante, e por isso a gente tem a gente oferece muitas aulas, né? Barra solo, dança capoeira, que também tem esses raízes, simbologia dos orixás. And for this reason, we offer the mini classes during the intensive, right? So you have ballet bar, you have ballet, you have dance capoeira, and then you have the symbology of the orisha. Mas por mim, quando eu estava dançando Graham, Horton, when I was dancing Graham, Horton e outras danças também, and other dances, não existe esses 3 triângulos. There wasn't these 3 triangles. Expressão, né? Que essa técnica realmente ensina pessoas como, ou abre uma porta para a pessoa descobrir. And this technique, this technique teaches you about the 3 triangles, and it opens the door for you to discover how to express, yeah? That I didn't receive that in other training. Equilíbrio, the balance, em conexão com as raízes, conexão com realidade, the balance in relation to reality, in relation to your roots, e inspiração, and inspiration, yeah, percepção, your perception, visualization, determination, your determination, things that I would never find in another technique class, right? Coisas que eu nunca achei no outro aulas de técnica, né? Como a parte do foundação, o profundo, the part of the foundation of the technique, right? So, eu só vou falar sobre essas 3 coisas porque tem tantas coisas mesmo que eu posso falar. I'm only going to talk about those 3 things because the 3 triangles, because there are many things I could talk about that are in this technique that I didn't find in my discoveries with other techniques that I love as well, but this one has given me life, yeah? So,
yeah, I agree. And kind of goes back to that self-actualization thing that you were talking about earlier, which I feel so strongly in this specific technique. It's not training us to be a robot or to look like other people. It's training us to think and move for ourselves.
Absolutely, yeah. Yuko. Maybe you can answer this one, and this can maybe be our last one to wrap up, because Silvestre Technique is such a global, it's global in many ways. Can you talk a bit about your perspective on the exchanges the technique generates between the local community in Brazil and communities outside of Brazil? Você pode falar sobre seu how do you say perspective? Seu pensamento do troca da técnica entre a comunidade local em Brasil e comunidades fora do Brasil.
Well, I can speak for my own experience and my own community. We've so benefited from building a relationship with Rosangela and with Vera, and bringing teachers of this technique into our community, because not everybody has the ability to go to Brazil, but sometimes we can bring our teachers and our favorite artists to us when we're really lucky and we save up our money. But yeah, I mean, the ways in which those workshops that we have facilitated here, the ways in which those have benefited our community are, I mean, I couldn't even, we could just spend the whole time talking about that, because, you know, Utah, I mean, when I first started, certainly I felt very isolated here, and I could maybe find a few things on the coasts at that time, but there really wasn't anything here, and I needed to go seeking and searching and bring in wise people to teach me how to dance and how to live, you know, and also I'll say for my community, people of color, and to have that perspective and have some Black wisdom into our community was very powerful and important.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. I think it's important to translate, even if it's not all of it. Okay. But that was really important what you said.
I will try, and you might be able to help me.
Okay, go ahead.
Para minha comunidade, meu comunidade, essas trocas benefit muito bom para nós, porque aqui nós isolated, separated, I don't know, separado do outras danças no essa técnica. Então eu tenho que trazer essas artistas e meus professoras favoritas aqui, e meu comunidade está muito branco, e é muito bom para trazer negritude, right? Black wisdom to this white place, and ajudamos.
Sim. Beautiful. Thank you, Lorin. Então, agradeço muito, Lorin, né, para essa oportunidade para sentar e falar com você. So I thank Lorin for this opportunity to sit and talk with her for a little bit. And also for International Samba Congress for opening the space. Também para International Samba Congress para abrir esse espaço, e claro para a família Tecnica Silvestre, yeah, and for the Silvestre Tecnique family, para possibilidades, né? Só vou falar isso, for possibilities. Então, a gente tem nosso evento com International Samba Congress, so we have our events with the International Samba Congress esse sábado, this Saturday, yeah. I'm saying time in Eastern Standard Time because that's where I am, and I don't want to say the wrong thing for other people's time. So from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, yeah? Então, a gente vai ter esse evento com International Samba Congress, com Tecnica Silvestre, esse sábado, no horário do Nova York, 1 hora até 5 horas, com toda a equipe, yeah, with all of the team, Tecnica Silvestre, tem o Eventbrite no chat, né, seguir Tecnica Silvestre no Instagram, Silvestre Tecnique, yeah. You can follow Silvestre Tecnique on Instagram, @Silvestre Tecnique. A gente vai postar coisas. A gente tem um intensivo em janeiro que está chegando, yeah. A gente vai postar, lançar informação sobre isso também. We have the Silvestre Dance Technique arriving in January. And so we're going to be online and we'll post about that soon. Sorry, I'm giving all of the announcements at the end. And so, seguir a Tecnica Silvestre, né, no Instagram, também no Facebook, tem página do Tecnica Silvestre. We also have a Facebook page of Silvestre Dance Technique, yeah, or Silvestre Tecnique. So follow, and we hope to see you all on the 12th at 1 Eastern Standard Time. So, a gente espera ver todos vocês e mais esse dia 12, 1h da tarde, horário do Nova York. Compartilhar esse live. Muito obrigada para todo mundo que está aqui com a gente agora. Thank you to everyone that's here with us tonight or afternoon. And share this link, share this live. Thank you all. Abraços forte. Abraços, Lorin.
Abraço. Thank you so much.
Abraços.
Much love.
Boa noite. Tchau, tchau.
Tchau.